adding adding 395.95 square feet to the floor area of the first floor, as well as a new second story. And this second story addition is in total of 951.5 square feet of floor area. Overall, this is a total proposed addition to the existing home of 1,347 square feet. On some of the following slides, I'll also show you site plans and floor plans so we can outline those additions specifically. I also wanted to mention that the applicants are also proposing to retain the existing single car garage, and they're proposing one uncovered off-street parking space in the front yard offset of the driveway. This proposed uncovered spot would allow for an additional spot on the property without obstructing access to the existing driveway to the single car garage. Before I'm going into the site plans and showing you those sheets that were provided by the applicant, I wanted to give you all an image first of the house and to orient ourselves a little bit. We're looking right now at 848 15th Avenue in North Fair Oaks. The front of the home is facing north towards 15th Avenue. And as you can see on the left side of that highlighted parcel is that existing single car garage with the car parked in the driveway that it's connected to. Now I'm showing you the existing and proposed site plan overlaid. The front of the home here, again, to orient ourselves, is facing north, is on the right side of your screen towards 15th Avenue. The portion of the site plan outlined in green and with a slightly transparent fill, that's the footprint of the existing home outlined. The portions of the home outlined in black are the footprint of the addition to the home outside of the existing footprint. And those areas are also labeled and identified with hatch marks. You see on the first floor addition, the hatch marks are going from the top left to the bottom right. And on the second floor addition portions, the hatch marks are going from the bottom left to top right. And for areas where there's both a first floor addition and second floor addition, you'll see both of those hatch marks from the first floor and second floor addition creating sort of like these X's or squares inside of those areas. So you see that in the middle of the property. As you can see from this site plan, the majority of the development that will take place is in the rear portion of the home. The applicant and the owner stated they're looking to keep as much of the first floor as possible and sustain that existing design concept of their residence. Also, from the site plan, we're able to look at the setbacks. And for the setback requirements for the zoning district, it does comply with the 20-foot front setback shown on the right side of the screen, the 20-foot setback in the rear as well. On the left side of the home, which would be the west side, there's also a 5-foot setback that is being met currently. Currently, it's at 9 feet, and I did want to highlight that there's an existing concrete walkway there. The home would need to be significantly altered to accommodate the width necessary for the parking to be located on this side of the house. The applicants are proposing to expand with the second story and first story addition to that 5-foot setback. On the other side, I wanted to discuss the setback on the right side of the home. That's where the existing garage is. I have that existing garage highlighted on the screen. The existing single car garage actually violates the side setback of 5 feet by less than 50%. It's at 3 foot 9 inches currently. Therefore, it's considered a non-conforming structure according to our zoning regulations. They state that if any non-conforming portion of the structure is proposed to be removed, that the replacement shall conform then with the zoning regulations. So the structure as is permitted as long as it remains in place. I also wanted to note that the second floor addition that's shown on top of the garage, that does comply with the setback standards of 5 feet. Last, before moving forward to the next slide, I wanted to point out the highlighted uncovered parking space as well. That's shown offset just left of the driveway in the front of the property. On some following slides, I will outline those more specifically and we'll look at those a little bit more. Here are those 2 parking spaces that I was mentioning. We have the 1 covered space that currently exists in the existing 1-car garage. Next is the proposed uncovered space that I just mentioned. It's 9 by 19 feet, which is 171 square feet total. This meets our parking regulations for size and access, and as well as, or mentioning the access, it will not obstruct the existing driveway and single car garage. As you can see from some of the markups on these plans, this parking space, in order to be conforming, it requires a minor driveway and apron extension. With this work being done, that will allow for the no obstructions to take place on entry or exit of the existing driveway. On this next slide, this is just a visual cue showing that proposed uncovered parking space that I just was outlining to you, that was 9 by 19. Again, there will be a slight apron extension to allow access to this, but that proposed parking spot there won't obstruct access into the garage that exists. Next, I would like to show you the proposed floor plans, so you get an idea of what the addition is consisting of on the first floor. On the left-hand side of your screen here is the existing first floor plan outlined in green, and on the right is the proposed, and that's outlined in red. The remodel and addition of 395 square feet on the first floor consists of an expansion of the great room. There will be an addition of the laundry and the pantry, as well as a reconfiguration of the entryway to the front of the home. Overall, the use of the space on this floor isn't changing substantially. This was based on the desires of the homeowners. Next, we're looking at the proposed second floor plan. I don't have an existing second floor plan to compare against because there's not a second story on this home as of now. The second story proposed addition includes the addition of the 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. That's part of the 951.5 square foot expansion of the second floor. See 1, 2, 3, and the 2 bathrooms. Now we're looking at the elevations, and this is for the north and the south of the home, the north facing 15th Avenue. The existing home was less than 14 feet. It was at 13 feet, 8.5 inches, and it's proposed to be at 24 feet, 8 inches. You can see the existing roof with this number 8 on the north elevation pointing to that point right there. The maximum building height for the zoning district is 28 feet. So this proposed design is several feet below that and complies with the height requirements of our zoning standards. The proposed addition also complies with the daylight plane regulations, as well as the architectural features like the dormers, complying with the zoning standards. Next, this is the proposed elevations for both the east and west sides. So both of the sides of the home. And this is the existing garage or proposed garage here on the east elevation plan. Next, I wanted to discuss just overall the scope of the project and how it's complying with the County of San Mateo's regulations. For the general plan, our general plan identifies North Fair Oaks as an urban community, in that the North Fair Oaks community plan has designed this land use density as single family residential. This proposed project is consistent with that land use designation of this parcel and the surrounding areas. For zoning regulations, this project also complies with our zoning standards for the zoning district of North Fair Oaks, R1 S73, meaning single family residential North Fair Oaks combining district. The proposed addition meets the zoning district standards for setbacks, height, lot coverage, and floor area. The proposed addition also does not introduce a new use to the single family property, and therefore the existing single family residence remains consistent with the permitted use in the R1 zoning district. Next, onto parking. The parking regulations for the county require 2 off-street parking spaces that are covered for each dwelling unit that has 2 or more bedrooms. With the addition of the 3 bedrooms for the proposed scope of this project, this property needs to comply with the requirement for 2 off-street covered spaces. With the existing single-car garage counting as one of those required spaces, the need for the second required covered space, the owners decided to apply for the off-street parking exception. And based on the existing development configuration of the parcel, staff has found that there's limited space to provide an additional covered space in conformance with zoning regulations. And I do want to remind again, as part of their proposal, the applicant has included the inclusion of that 1 off-street uncovered parking space located in the front yard that does not block access to existing parking. Overall, the owners and applicant have stated that this exception is being requested in order to retain the existing house design and layout as much as possible while adding more space for a growing family. And before finishing my presentation with the recommendation that we're asking for today, I wanted to briefly provide some commentary on the public comments that have been received during the public noticing that was required for this project. I received multiple comments during this noticing period. I received 2 in favor of approving the addition. One of those noting that the addition being proposed was negligible compared to some of the other large scale developments being done by developers in the neighborhood. Another one in support cited that the owners have been excellent neighbors and they're renovating their home for their growing family and that they've parked their cars on their driveways consistently. I also received a few comments in opposition during public noticing. There was 2 comments stating opposition to the waiver being allowed, and instead asking that the owner provide a 2-car garage as part of their addition. There were 2 comments in opposition in general of large scale and 2nd-story developments in the neighborhood, stating that they've been more prominent in the neighborhood recently. And lastly, there was 1 comment with just a general concern for the narrow street, ongoing construction in the neighborhood, and the effects that has on future permits for other residents. For all of those who provided public comments, I provided them with the information to the North Fair Oaks Community Council's website and notified them of this July 28th meeting. And to conclude, I'll just read the recommendation real quickly, and that's what we're seeking here today, and that's that the North Fair Oaks Community Council provide a recommendation to the Community Development Director for an off-street parking exception to allow for the continued use of a single-car garage and a proposed uncovered off-street parking space where 2 covered parking spaces are required. And this is in association with a major addition and remodel of an existing single-family residence. Thank you for allowing me to present, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you might have, as well as the owners and the applicants in attendance to help answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Do we have any questions from council members?
I do have 1 question, and that is, I'm not sure how recent the photograph provided in the presentation may be, but are there any trees, large trees that may be in jeopardy for this expansion?
Thank you for the question. There's no trees that are proposed to be removed as part of this project, and during planning's review of the plans that were provided, there was no trees that were indicated that needed to be protected just as part of this development, so no removals are necessary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions from council members? Yeah, I have one, Sam. What's the approximate width of the apron extension we're looking at on this?
Sure, yeah, I can go back to that slide and show you. So the apron is extending about 2 feet 4 inches from the existing 14-foot 6-inch apron, and that's if you're facing north, it's on the right side of the apron here. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor on the screen as I'm sharing, but I'm circling it.
Yeah.
If there are no other questions from council members, is there any public comment on this item?
During this time, member of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 4, off-street parking exception for PON 2022-00052 at 848 15th Avenue. Please raise your hand. For those of you in room 101, please bring the speaker card up to the clerk. I don't see any hands up on Zoom. Victor, is there any comments on your end?
Through the chair, there's none at the moment.
To you, Shane.
Thank you. In that case, then I'd call for a motion to approve the off-street parking exception for PLN 2022-00052 at 848 15th Avenue. We have a motion to approve the parking exception.
Yeah, I will move to approve the off-street parking exception as stated at located at 848 15th Avenue, Menlo Park.
Do we have a second for that motion? Second, Blair, thank you very much. We have a motion, it's been seconded, we need a roll call vote,
Okay,
please.
commencing roll call now. Council member Juan Carlos Prado.
Or just, excuse me, Kenny, just those who were in attendance tonight.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Council member Everardo Rodriguez.
Yes.
Council member Jennifer Ruiz. Vice Chair Blair Whitney. And Chair Brooke Lester.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sam, for your presentation tonight.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Agenda item number 5, recommendation, actually for the North Fair Oaks Economic Advancement Center. This is a presentation by Peggy Jensen of the County Executive's Office.
Sam, could you stop sharing your screen? Thank you.
Yes, I'm here. If you could share our PowerPoint, we'd be ready to go. I am joined this evening, as I was at the study session, by Ernesto Lucero and also Karen Decker and Erica Wood. So thank you very much, Council, for letting us present tonight on the concept of the North Fair Oaks Economic and Community Center. Next slide, please. Next slide. There we go. Okay, thank you very much. So our agenda this evening for our short presentation, we're going to give you some background on the Community Economic Advancement Center. Ernesto will be talking about the program that's been in place for about a year in South San Francisco. Erica will be giving you some background on the planning that's underway for the Coastside Center. I'll talk briefly about a study that was conducted in late 2021 for the North Fair Oaks Business and Family Center feasibility discussions, and then I will conclude with a proposed timeline for North Fair Oaks Center planning. And then finally, there'll be opportunity and time for the council to discuss the concept and provide direction to staff going forward. Next slide, please. So I'd like to turn it over to Ernesto to give you some background on the wonderful program in South San Francisco.
Great, good evening. Thank you, Peggy. My name is Ernesto Lucero. I'm the acting deputy director with the City of South San Francisco's Economic and Community Development Department. So the Economic Advancement Center in South San Francisco, this was a response to the growing need to support our unemployed and underemployed residents, as well as a lot of the struggling small businesses and entrepreneurs recover from the pandemic. So as the City of South San Francisco, along with a lot of our partners like San Mateo County, we had pushed out a lot of COVID relief programs over the past several years, and we learned of a couple important things, mostly that a lot of the community members that we were trying to reach were basically not online, or were missing a lot of the important webinars that we were pushing out and didn't have the ability to apply for a lot of the programs or resources that we were promoting online. So with that as well, a lot of the population we were trying to reach did not speak English as their preferred language. So with that, we looked at just basically creating a brick and mortar one-stop shop with a lot of the resources and service providers that could provide a lot of these much needed resources to South San Francisco and North San Mateo County. So with that, we had identified that we needed a space to support small businesses, entrepreneurs, as well as job seekers. At the height of the pandemic, though, we had one of the highest unemployment rates in San Mateo County in South San Francisco. And we wanted a central location that was specific in our downtown that was within the walkable neighborhood, close to transit, and we could really reach people in a quick and appropriate fashion. As the city negotiated the lease and we did some tenant improvements, we really wanted to kick off those services virtually. And so those services kicked off in July of last year, 2021. And the space officially opened this year, February of this year. So we've been open a few months now. And the current providers that are in the space are Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center, and they're assisting small businesses and entrepreneurs. And then we have JobTrain assisting on the workforce development side. We also have this YMCA in the space once a week, and they're administering the city's emergency rental assistance program for those affected by housing insecurity. Next slide, please. And through this partnership with San Mateo County, we were able to expand the small business support services to not just South San Francisco, but also other communities in North San Mateo County, including Colma, Daly City, Millbrae, Pacifica, San Bruno, and Brisbane. And these services are also in the process of getting expanded to North San Mateo County on the workforce development side with JobTrain. And as you'll see, some of the core services that are being provided at the Economic Advancement Center, a lot of walk-in assistance for rapid employment placement, boot camps for businesses that are trying to start up, a lot of resource referrals, grant program administration. A lot of this information is bilingual, so both in English and Spanish. And we're able to reach a lot of people that way, mostly Spanish at this point. Next slide, please. So both organizations are providing services for a goal of reaching 100 clients per organization per year. However, due to the high demand of these services, we're really anticipating that we're going to be reaching a lot more than those 100 clients per year. JobTrain primarily assisting this first year, like I mentioned, the rapid job placement services just to get people back to work simply. And those kind of wraparound services that JobTrain's providing are really geared towards career advising, resume development, and a lot of resources for occupational training. Last quarter, 36 of their clients gained new employment after services ending with an average wage of $23 an hour. And 70% of those individuals have landed full-time positions. And just remember, these are people that were unemployed or severely underemployed at that time. In addition, JobTrain's also providing or has provided 2 Teamsters transportation, distribution, and logistics (TDL) trainings to date, and we've partnered with the West Oakland Job Center to deliver those trainings. And with Renaissance on the small business side, they've been doing a lot of innovative programs for Spanish-speaking population. Comida y Comunidad is one of them. This is providing a multi-week training program to start a business and a venue to network with other Spanish-speaking startup companies within the space. In addition, Renaissance has created a women's empowerment group, and they've also been administering the California micro business COVID-19 relief grant to our most vulnerable micro businesses. Last quarter, specifically with Renaissance, they provided over 34 classes or workshops, and these were all held at the Economic Advancement Center in South San Francisco. We see this continuing to grow, and they've created a presence in South San Francisco. And most importantly, they've created a trust between our business community, which was really important to kind of get these services up and running. Next slide, please. This is just a slide specifically on Renaissance. There's a series of classes, workshops that they're all promoting on their website or with the QR code as well. That's rencenter.org/calendar. And this is just specifically one of their upcoming business orientations on how to grow and start a business on August 3rd. And then we link all of this information from all the service providers within the space on the city's website. and really push that out to our social media channels as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Peggy if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Ernesto. The next slide, please. So I just wanted to share with the council the Board of Supervisors' conceptual commitment. Because of the success of the South City Economic Advancement Center, the board has conceptually approved a $2.5 million allocation for an additional economic advancement center in both the North Fair Oaks community and also on the coast side. That amount was selected because it's expected to cover 2 years of operation for the center. It's also the time frame for within which we must spend our American Rescue Plan funds, which would be funding this program. Future funding beyond those 2 years would be dependent upon federal and state grants, philanthropy, and probably county funds. I should add that Ernesto and his team in South City have been very successful in getting additional funding from federal sources, federal and other sources. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Erica Wood, who will tell you about the planning that's started on the coast side for their economic center. Erica?
Thanks so much, Peggy, and good evening, Chair Brooks, Council, and community. I'm really happy to have the opportunity to talk about what's been happening on the coast side. We have been engaged in a local recovery effort for the last 1.5 years, and that's really informed our thinking about what an economic center could look like on the coast. And we hope that some of what we share with you this evening will provoke ideas for all of you around what makes sense here in North Fair Oaks. And we're really, really excited to collaborate with you and with South San Francisco and the county moving forward. Next slide. There were really 2 project goals that have been the cornerstones of our Coastside Recovery Initiative, as we call it. The first is obviously to help businesses in the community recover from the immediate impacts of COVID, shorter term. And then longer term, our dream is to create a more equitable, vibrant, and resilient economy that is prepared for the shocks we know are coming, and an economy that really works for everyone, consistent with our guiding principles of equity. Next slide. Our process involved a lot of stuff, an extensive community engagement effort, data, interviews, and focus groups to understand needs, and ultimately generate a set of 15 recommendations that would get us to those 2 goals I just talked about. One of which happened to be to create a small business assistance center. So you can imagine our excitement when, after visiting the center in South San Francisco, which left us very inspired, we were so pleased to hear of the $2.5 million recommendation from the county. Next slide. We have had an impressive task force, a diverse group of 17 people that included representatives of sectors that were hardest hit, particularly on the coast. So tourism, hospitality, restaurants, and small businesses, as well as other sector representation. And this was really our brain trust, frankly, for developing the recommendations that are guiding our work moving forward. Now that we're done with planning, we're turning toward the exciting phase of implementation. And as that relates to what an economic center could look like for the coast side, we've really guided our efforts around 3 key questions. Next slide. The first of those questions is resources, and what resources do we need to really be successful? We are honored that the City of Half Moon Bay has agreed to serve as the lead agency, and the City Council is fully supportive. We recognize we'll need the help of local and regional partners. And really important, the last bullet that you see, we're trying to remind ourselves to begin with the end in mind and have a plan for sustainability right at the outset. And so we're looking at earned income strategies, that it could include things like leasing shared workspaces and offering alternative working environments, which is becoming more and more popular as we come out of the pandemic. The second question we needed to answer was, where do we put such a center? And we can move to the next slide. We're fortunate to have some commercial real estate expertise represented on our task force, and we're currently eyeing a couple of vacant commercial sites that are approximately 4,000 square feet. We know that tenant improvements are necessary, but we see that as an opportunity to really engage our property owners and local philanthropists as co-investors. And then the final set of questions, and we can move to the next slide, is, and perhaps the most fun question, what do we want to offer? What will our programs look like? And we know we want to provide support for entrepreneurs, for small businesses and job seekers, but we're really excited about also including an incubator to generate jobs, and particularly jobs in opportunity industries like ag tech, regenerative farming, sustainable fishing, renewable energy, and natural resource conservation. These are industries that are really poised for growth, and part of the commitment to greening our industries that we think is a really exciting possibility. We want to focus on minority and female-led startups and entrepreneurs to the extent possible, because we know those groups have been left out. And we're thinking too about what are the kinds of barriers that get in the way and prevent people from moving up the economic ladder, so to speak. So we want to make sure we have an array of support services, including childcare, public benefit access, basic needs support, and doing that with the wonderful help of our core service agencies and nonprofits. We want to build on existing efforts, and our chamber, for example, is doing some great work that we see feeding right into our plans. And then a partnership with higher education, which is what we mean by that last bullet, and College of San Mateo, really trying to create pathways to high meaning, high wage, and high demand jobs based on the latest labor market data that we have. So we see that connection to higher ed and vocational programming as important. So that's it for the co-side for now. And again, I'll just restate that we are so excited to work with you all in North Fair Oaks and South San Francisco and the county to learn and support each other on this journey.
Thank you very much, Erica. Let's go to the next slide. So next slide, please. So back in 2021, about mid-year, Supervisor Slocum requested the county to enter into a contract with the Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center to assess the feasibility and essentially assess community interest in a family resource and small business center. The project was completed in early 2022. It involved a series of interviews with over 31 organizations, business owners, different individuals. And the findings, the overall findings were that there's strong support for this within, at least among the people that were surveyed. Next slide, please. What the surveyors found out, what Renaissance found out from this study, was that the business services that people were interested were very similar to what's being offered in South City and what's being planned for the coast side: job training, entrepreneurship training and resources, strong interest in working capital, funds, loans, and grants, interest in affordable office space, but also business education and training, many of the types of programs that Renaissance provides up in the North County. In terms of community services, there was strong interest in just having better information about community services that are available, navigation assistance, how to apply for those programs. Also, an interest in co-working space for community organizations and community meeting space. Next slide, please. So when we presented a very similar presentation to the council at the study session last week, and the direction we received was that the council was interested in having ongoing updates around the planning for this project. So what we were proposing for you this evening is that we would start the community planning this summer, if this is of interest to the council as a whole. That's essentially the question that we're asking you this evening. And the thought would be that planning would continue to the point, and we would provide ongoing updates, monthly updates to the council, and anticipate having a completed plan in November for your meeting in November. And then we would present the plan and request for funding, at which point the board could weigh in and provide a letter of support at the December 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Board of Supervisors. So that concludes our presentation. Next slide, please. And we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and we would take your guidance on whether this is something you would like to see happen in North Fair.
So are there any questions from council members for Peggy? Councilmember Ruiz, go ahead, Jen.
Within the program, is there any program or support groups for people with disabilities that want to find jobs?
So, so thank you for the question. Is the question whether the program would offer services for people with disabilities? If that's the, yes, it would be available and open to everyone. That's certainly, we could work with whoever the consultants are that are providing the services. If there's a specific area that, specific type of service that you would like them to provide, that could certainly be arranged.
That's great.
Other questions from council members?
Yeah, I do have a question, and do you know if the name of the current center in South San Francisco is, as it was stated, Economic and Community Center? Or what is the current name for that?
Ernesto, do you want to take that question?
Oh, sure. I think the question was, what is the name of the center?
In South San Francisco.
Yeah, it's the Economic Advancement Center, and we've also translated the center in Spanish throughout different marketing materials to the Centro de Avance Económico.
Okay, and is the name of the center in North Fair Oaks potentially going to be the same?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble understanding you a little bit. Was a question of the name of the center that for North Fair Oaks?
North Fair Oaks, yeah.
The center, so the center will be named by the community. That's part of the community process for planning. It's and so that's something that we think that the community needs to really define what the center is, just as the planning process has occurred in on the coast side. Erica, I don't think you've all established a name yet.
No, we're looking for creative inspiration. We're thinking something with opportunity center, Centro Oportunidad. But yes, open to suggestions.
Yeah,
But
no, I did want to get stuck in the name, but I just want to make sure that I understand what would the difference be between the portion of the community center of this new project versus the current North Fair Oaks community center, because there will be an overlap if the name community center is included. So just trying to understand the distinction between the community portion of this new project that you're presenting tonight versus some of the services that are currently offered by the Fair Oaks Community Center.
What we can do, I mean, we appreciate the fact that we want to distinguish, we don't want this to be confused with the North Fair Oaks Community Center. So what our suggestion might be is to follow the path that the coast side has followed and figure out what kinds of services would be provided at the center, what is it the community wants, and then we could come back to the council with some suggested names from the community, and the council could weigh in on what they feel would be most appropriate. I think the point that Ernesto made and that Erica's made, that we want something that's easy to understand in English and in Spanish and reflects really the purpose of the site. So there's time to work on that.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Other questions from council members?
Oh, actually one more, not a question, but during the study session, I mentioned something about related to the environment, and just for the record, I wanted to mention that again, that currently with businesses, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that could be potentially improved in terms of businesses utilizing more environmentally friendly products that they utilize, in their businesses. So just making sure that this project, is mindful of that.
I apologize. I'm having trouble understanding the questions because of the microphones. Erica or Ernesto, is that something that you could respond to?
Yeah, the question came up similar to the study session about, um, immediate opportunities around greening businesses, ensuring
right.
businesses are using green practices to the degree possible. And I'm glad that question was asked, and I'll reiterate some of the comments I shared in the study session, which is, we don't see it as separate and apart from economic development and economic advancement. I think about the coast side, and we had the pandemic and we had the fires, the CZU fire, and it was all a painful reminder that coming out of this, there's a real opportunity to do business differently and more sustainably. So we are thinking about that and want to help our small business owners be able to do business as greenly as possible.
Thank you, Erica. Yes, I would say that that's absolutely a priority for any center. We would seek partnerships with organizations like PCE, look at ways where we could encourage development of small businesses that are green, that do promote environmental sustainability.
Thank you.
Other questions from council members? Turn to public comment now. First, if there's any public comment in the room. Do you have any online comment from the public?
During this time, member of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda number 5, North Fair Oaks Economic Advancement Center, please raise your hand now. No comments on our end. I'll check with our interpreter. Victor, are there any public comments on the phone line?
Thank you, Kenny. Through the chair. No, there's none at the moment.
Back to you, Chip.
Thank you. Okay, we had agendized this item to have a motion on there to indicate our support for the center. Now it sounds like maybe you would like to have that vote in November. You'd like to come back to us in November once there's a conceptual plan for both this and the Coastside Center. Question to Tim. Would we need to pass a motion to delay that vote of support given that we agendized the motion to begin with? Or
no, the Brown Act requires that you agendize matters if you're going to take action on them. If you don't take an action on them, you don't need to actually make an affirmative decision to table it or continue the item.
Got it. Thank you very much. Then Peggy will look forward to hearing from you again in November when the conceptual plan is ready, prior to the Board of Supervisors meeting in December.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you all for your presentation this evening.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a recommendation to request the Board of Supervisors support the Selby Lane bicycle improvements that are being conducted by the City of Atherton. The Town of Atherton. The presentation is going to be given by Douglas Kim, who's a contract sustainability coordinator with the Town of Atherton. Douglas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Esser, and council members. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to meet with the council tonight. My name is Doug Kim, and I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the Town of Atherton. Let me first apologize for not having a presentation, a visual one for you tonight. I was out of the country when staff had to provide presentations for your agenda package. So I hope to describe what is a pretty simple project in an effort to see if we can get council support for our quest for grant funding. So, like the county and many jurisdictions, Atherton is trying to get funding to design and build bike and pedestrian improvements. In fact, tonight is the first of at least 2 potential projects that we think are beneficial for the North Fair Oaks community that we would love to get support from. In Atherton, as you can imagine, our priorities tend to focus less on the quiet streets, but on streets that are busier, that are substandard when it comes to bike and pedestrian facilities. So our projects tend to focus on El Camino Real, where we think there's a real benefit for communities like North Fair Oaks. So we're asking the council to support a grant application for the OBAG program that would address 2 problems on this application. First, Many of you are familiar with Adelante Selby Spanish Immersion School on Selby Lane. It's a mile off of El Camino Real. Well, there are 730 children who attend that school. Most of whom live in North Fair Oaks and use Fifth Avenue and other facilities to eventually cross El Camino at Selby Lane. Those of you who know that intersection know there's no traffic light. There is a crosswalk, but there is no real good, safe way for kids and bicyclists and pedestrians to cross there. So we want to create a safe crossing for students who live in North Fair Oaks and elsewhere, along with pedestrians and bicyclists at this big intersection. So we would propose to install one of those high visibility hawk beacons that shine bright and tell vehicles in both directions to stop and allow our kids to cross safely. We think that this kind of beacon would help make El Camino a little less daunting for kids and really complement some of the bike and pedestrian improvements that are happening in North Fair Oaks along the Fifth Avenue corridor. And we know Public Works staff is supportive of this project. The second project that we're looking to fund here, I think is a pretty simple one as well. Once those kids cross El Camino Real, they actually have to travel 1 mile all the way to Adelante Selby School. It's a 2-lane road, but there is no bike lane. There's no sidewalks. So those kids have to walk along this collector road. We want to make it safer and more convenient for kids and bicyclists by building a Class 2 bike lane that goes the entire mile out and back towards El Camino. We are thankful to have received support from a number of local stakeholders, including Supervisor Slocum, including staff from the County Department of Public Works, and a number of other public and private entities. I'm happy to answer questions about those two projects, but we would respectfully request the council support for our grant application. I believe you may have a draft letter of support for your consideration as well.
Thank you very much, Doug. Do we have any questions from council members on this?
I do have a question. So in order to implement the bike lane along Selby, is Selby Lane, right?
Yes.
Is the road going to be enhanced, made wider, in other words?
Absolutely. In order to accommodate the bike lane, which we think should be about 10 to 12 feet wide, we are going to widen the Selby Lane a little bit to accommodate that dedicated bike lane.
Sounds good. And it'll run from El Camino Real, and then where would it stop in the southern end?
It will stop right at the end of Adelante Selby School. There's actually a little street called Selby Lane. It's exactly 1 mile from El Camino.
Okay.
Other questions from council members? Councilmember Ruiz.
Will the bike lane have like fluorescent paint colors like the new bike lanes are having now to kind of distinguish between street and the bike lanes?
Yes, we're looking at different pavement colors. Yellow, I know, is one that will happen at the entry to Adelante Selby. But yes, we will be looking to make it as visible as possible for motorists and for bicyclists.
Other questions from council members? Doug, where's the funding coming from for these projects? Which agency is going to provide the funding for these?
Mr. Chair, the funding is through MTC's One Bay Area grant program, and that's a collection of different federal, state funds that are all put into a big pot and ultimately allocated first by CCAG, and then MTC ultimately has the controls over that. So we're asking for $3 million for the environmental studies, design, right-of-way acquisition, and then of course, construction funds for both the Selby Lane improvements and the improvements on El Camino.
Okay, no Atherton general funds, county money, anything like that.
Oh, we will be matching at least 10%. Yes, I'm sorry. There's a blend of local funds as well.
Okay, no, thank you for explaining. Is there any public comment on this issue?
During this time, member of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 6, request Board of Supervisors to support Shelby Lane bicycle improvements. Please raise your hand. For those of you in room 101, please bring the speaker card up to the clerk. Seems there is no comments on our end. Victor, are there any comments on the phone line?
There's none at the moment.
Thank you, Victor. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you. And at this point, then I'd like to call for a motion asking the Board of Supervisors to adopt a resolution in support of Atherton's proposed Selby bicycle lane improvements. I will provide Douglas's letter that he referred to as a basis for that resolution. I'll work with staff to create the final resolution. Do we have a motion in that regard? Someone make a motion.
I'll move to support the project.
Do we have a second? Second, thank you, Jennifer. We'll need a roll call vote then.
Commencing roll call now. Councilmember Everardo Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Jennifer Ruiz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Blair Whitney.
Yes.
Chair Brooks Leslie.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Final agenda item for this evening is relates to North Fair Oaks Community Council membership. It's the annual determination of the number of members of the North Fair Oaks Community Council for both the county charter as well as the bylaws of the council. According to the bylaws of the North Fair Oaks Council, we're required to set the number of members of the council at our regular meeting in July of each year. Note that the council may have no fewer than 5 nor more than 9 members, in addition to a youth member or an alternate youth member who shall be a voting member. And you can confirm that is correct.
Yes, although there is a bit of a conflict in the documentation about the status and role of the youth member. There are documents on both sides of the issue, but the number needs to be set by action of the council at the July meeting each year.
Okay, and that youth member does not count against the number of designated members. So
Correct.
if we go 5 to 9, the youth member would be in addition to 5 or addition to on the high end 9 members.
Correct. The youth member is established by the Board of Supervisors resolution, so the range of 5 to 9 is separate from the youth member.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of makes this interesting, I went back, to be honest with you, through the minutes of July meetings going back to 2013. I only found one reference to the council actually complying with this, and that was back in 2014. The council set the designated number of members 9. Based on my reading of the minutes, it may be a mistake here. It appears as though the council made this decision under the assumption that the youth member counted as one of those nine members, which to Tim's point is not the case. I'll defer to Tim on this, but I believe we can have up to 9 members, 9 designated members, plus 1 voting youth member if we so decide to go on the high end. As a reminder, we currently have 6 council members along with 2 vacancies. The regular members include myself, Council Vice Chair Whitney, council members Cerrillo, Ruiz, Prado, and Rodriguez with 2 vacancies. One is a replacement for Joni Gillespie, and one is a replacement for Linda Lopez. As an aside, we've begun interviews for those 2 vacancies and expect to fill those positions early next month. At this point, I'd like to ask other council members for their questions and thoughts on the appropriate number of members for the council. You can open it up for questions and discussion.
I'd like to start the conversation. I think that in my view, probably the more the merrier, considering that, absenteeism, may be an issue for council members, and I think, a larger number may provide for, consistent quorum, during meetings. I mean, it would be only one more seat, right? Because we're at 8 right now,
That's, yes.
so it would be only, one more. Yeah, so that's my take on it.
Are there comments from council members? Vice Chair Whitney.
I think we're fine with the number of members that we have and just continue and then fill the vacancies. When we have 8, 9,
We have 8
and
currently and 2 vacancies.
so 6 filled, 2 vacancies. Yeah,
And then plus our youth member.
Right.
I'd like to hear your thoughts, Councilmember Ruiz. I don't want to share my thoughts, given that we have a relatively small attendance tonight. Each individual has a lot of weight.
I think I agree with Ever, because of absence or emergencies that may arise. And good to have them, council members for.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for offering your thoughts on this. I'm actually in favor of having some number of members as well, to the extent, to Ever's point, that absenteeism can be an issue, and better representation throughout the community that would in theory account for that, I think is a good thing for us. And it just encourages diversity through the council, in particular in terms of geographic diversity. We're large communities, and I don't think that having a maximum number of members on this council would be a bad thing. We do have 15,000, almost 16,000 residents. So, is there any public comment on this item?
During this time, members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 7, NFOCC membership, please raise your hand now. For those of you in room 101, please bring your speaker card up to the clerk. Doesn't seem like there's any comments on our end. Victor, are there any comments on the phone line?
Thank you, Kenny. Through the chair, there's none at the moment.
Thank you, Victor. Back to you, Chair.
Then I'd like to call for a motion to establish the number of members on the North Fair Oaks Community Council. And I'd like to ask whoever makes that motion to be very specific with regard to designated number of members plus a student member. So let's use that number so there's no confusion going forward. Would someone care to make a motion proposing number of members for the council?
I'd like to make a motion to increase the number of council member seats from 8 to 9.
I second that motion.
Second. Okay, we need a roll call vote then.
Commencing roll call now. Council member Everardo Rodriguez.
Yes.
Council member Jennifer Ruiz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Blair Whitney.
yes.
Chair S. Process.
Yes,
Back to you, Chair.
thank you very much. We believe that will give us another vacancy to try to do. And as an aside, we have
4 applicants, right?
4 applicants for 3 vacancies, so we are in good shape.
How are the interviews being held, or how is it advertised for people to apply?
The application period actually ended a couple of weeks ago. Blair and Ever have been on the interviews. We've interviewed a couple of candidates, and another one coming, the lead middle of next week. So we'll have a decision shortly. Good progress. Let's see, next agenda item, number 8 is report outs, supervisor report. We have Maggie on the line this evening.
Good evening, council members. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. I have a brief report today, and it's on 2 items. Let me just pull up my notes really quick. So the first item is on the Healthy Community Mural. The board on this past Tuesday, the board passed a District 4 Measure K grant to help fund the Healthy Community Mural project. That's going to be on the 5th Avenue underpass in North Fair Oaks. And for those of you that don't know, the project will include 16 murals along the underpass. And now that this grant is established, the next steps is that the Office of Arts and Culture will invite like local professionals and other artists that would be interested in the opportunity to become the muralist. So that's a really exciting project. And in August, there's going to be a survey that's going to follow up with this project. And the survey will be asking residents for their input on those 16 panels. And the next item is on Flood Park. So also during this Board of Supervisors meeting that I mentioned, the board approved the revised Flood Park landscape plan. I believe there was like close to 800 surveys of community input. So this is now going to allow the plan to move forward and the renovations to begin. So if there's some questions or comments on my report, I can answer them.
Yeah, I do have a question, Maggie. Thank you for your report. What will the process of selecting the muralist artist going to be? Who's selecting the muralists?
So right now, the committee is the Office of Arts and Culture, which is Robin. I'm not sure if you know her. And then there's Kent and Laura, who are, as well as Dale. There's a couple of members that are in this committee. I can't remember the name right now.
Culture Collective.
Yes, that one. Yeah. And then a member of District 4's office, which is me, that Marcy has been involved too, but now it's just me that's involved. So that will be the group or it's been the group that's been handling like the RFP and the interviews and surveys and stuff like that.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Maggie. Next report out is County Manager, Justin.
Good evening, everyone. We should probably change it to County Executive Office. Our new moniker, the County Manager still works. Justin Mays, Deputy County Executive. We see you all in person and everyone joining on Zoom. Just a few quick announcements. Just an update. Last month, we talked about the North Fair Oaks Small Business Grants. These are pandemic-related for businesses, small businesses in North Fair Oaks that have had pandemic-related impacts. The county has a grant program right now of $5,000 each. We've at this point granted out 43 such grants, but we just received 15 new applications over the last week, which is great. We still want to get the word out and let small businesses in North Fair Oaks know that these grants are available. Middlefield Road improvement project continues. Sidewalks are now completed from Pacifica to Berkshire. Please, anyone listening, and also council members, please visit middlefieldroad.org to stay up on the latest schedule of that project, which will be going on for a few more months. The county is launching a new commission. It's the Farm Worker Advisory Commission, an advisory body similar to other advisory bodies such as the North Fair Oaks Community Council. The applications to be on that commission launch tomorrow. There are a number of seats for various folks representing various interests, but including farm workers, members of CBOs, and family members of farm workers. If for farm worker representatives and family members, there is a $100 honorarium for every commission meeting. We really like to have a lot of applicants for this new commission. We're very excited about it. So please pass the word on for anyone listening about this opportunity. Finally, in a prior meeting, we talked about the process we're undertaking to a 10-year review of the North Fair Oaks community plan. It's been 10 years. And we issued an RFP for a consultant to conduct that review process for us. We're now in the interview process. Chair Esser made a request to have a member or more, two of the North Fair Oaks Community Council sit on that interview panel. Chair Esser has volunteered to sit on that panel. We'll get that scheduled, but also want to open it up to anyone else who wish to sit on that interview panel. Either let me know tonight, or you can please email me by tomorrow morning if you'd like to volunteer.
Thank you very much, Justin. Council member reports, Vice Chair Whitney.
Community bike ride was last month from Siena Youth Center down to Flood Park, and about a dozen people. It's a good event. Checking out the bike lanes on Fifth Avenue and going through the Fair Oaks Beautification Association little parklet, and there was a father and his two kids, and he lived on Fifth and talked about traffic calming and the possibility of a stop sign. And I gave him all the details about maybe coming to public comment or applying to be on the council, and yeah, just outreach. So that's all I have to report.
Council member Rodriguez.
Is mostly being participating in meetings with community-based organizations, including MPC Ready, which stands for Menlo Park City Ready. It's an emergency preparedness program for the city of Menlo Park, although they're embracing the North Fair Oaks portion of the Menlo Park zip code along the avenues between Mill Hill Road and Marsh Road in that corner. That falls within the zip code of Menlo Park, and essentially just planning about emergency preparedness with the North Fair Oaks Community Alliance. We are also trying to implement such a thing as an emergency preparedness plan for the entire community at some point. So we are learning a lot from the MPC Ready, and also separate from that, with a community organization that has been working in East Palo Alto and Bellhaven. The organization is called Climate Ready Communities. We're considering the possibility of maybe implementing a climate readiness academy that would essentially invite families from North Fair Oaks to learn about climate change and the potential effects that those can have in the health of North Fair Oaks residents, including, as we're seeing in the news, all over the place about extreme heat events, extreme rain, extreme weather in general, but also fires and smoke, etc. but also how to make do-it-yourself activities that, for example, people who live even in very small quarters, how they could potentially have their own mini planters, small gardens, etc. So more to come, still in the planning. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. Councilmember Ruiz, Jennifer, do you have a report tonight?
I've just been meeting with Paul Bocanegra, discussing how to help juveniles at risk and also how to help people re-entering the community, more help for that section of that community. He runs a program and he's funded by the Chan Zuckerberg for I can't recall the name right now. It's of his program, which started in LA, but it's expanding throughout California. So we're just kind of brainstorming right now and seeing how we can help our North Oaks community, juveniles at risk.
Being interesting to hear more about that at some point.
Of course, I'll invite him to.
That would be great. Thank you. Anything else?
That's.
I just wanted to remind everyone of the North Fair Oaks Community Festival. It's going to take place on August 14th from 10 to 3, 2500 Middlefield Road. That's the parking lot, of course, for the community center and library. There are going to be booths set up by agencies that support the community, including North Fair Oaks Community Council. OCA will be there. Community Alliance has a booth, I believe, as well as food and music throughout the day. Please put this on your calendars. It's I'm just really looking forward to getting the community together in this way for the first time in a few years. I'd like to invite you guys to let me know when you would be available to staff the booth. I'm planning on being there all day. We'll have different responsibilities and stuff, but Jennifer and Blair, if you let me know when you'd like to commit to spending an hour or two or whatever at the booth talking to people. Maggie, quick question for you. You're still there? The mural survey, I believe it's no accident that the survey is going to be ready in the middle of August because we wanted to distribute them at the community festival. So if we can do that in all of the booths that I just mentioned, NFOCC, Community Alliance, OCA, people like that, I think we'll get a good return if we distribute them in all of those different booths. So just note to you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to officially go live on the 14th, which is the day of the community festival.
Okay, so you'll have cards with like the URL and how people can participate in that. Is that correct?
Yeah, the rest of the members who are helping plan this have like a QR code and are going to be printing paper surveys as well as having like the option of people doing it online.
Okay, thank you. With that, that's through our agendas tonight. I'd like to thank all the presenters who came out this evening. Thanks to members of the public who attended. And as always, thanks to county staff, Emma, Victor, Kenny, Justin, Tim, and Joshua, Maggie for their support, in particular for handling the logistics of our hybrid meeting tonight. I think things went very, very well considering this is our first time event. Our next council meeting is a regular meeting, August 25th, 2022, 7 to 9 p.m. And with that, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.